8. Blue Hills eruption. In 1980, a news station participated in an April Fool's Day prank, leading to mass hysteria and panic in the streets of Boston. WNAC-TV Channel 7 reporter Jim Harrison thought it would be hilarious to prank his entire audience. So in order to do this, he gathered real footage from Mount St. Helens volcanic eruption and clips from a frightened and concerned President Jimmy Carter, then edited them together to create a video he would later play live on the air. He reported to his viewers that the Blue Hills in Milton were erupting. Keep in mind that Mount St. Helens had just erupted for real only 5 days before the broadcast. So it's understandable that everyone was pretty freaked out. The newscast aired on April 1st, 1980, and the public was reasonably concerned by his claims. In response, many people took to the streets in a panic, while others began to flood the local police department and the Massachusetts Civil Defense with phone calls. However, if they would have just stuck around for the entirety of the report, they would have seen Harrison holding up a sign that read, "April Fools." In the end, the prank news story didn't go over all that well with the station's audience or the news station executives. The day after the Blue Hills eruption story aired, Homer Killey, the executive producer for the 6 o'clock news, was fired from his position for failing to exercise good news judgment and for violating the rules of Federal Communications Commission. 7. Ebola zombies. In 2013, the famous Ebola virus made international headlines when a story was released claiming that the deceased victims were rising from the dead. An article was published on a satirical website claiming that 3 victims who had passed away from the virus had risen from the grave as zombies. The story was posted on a site called Big America News, which claims to report on loudly yelled opinions, as well as facts proudly born of raw gut instinct. However, some readers didn't seem to understand that the claims were fake, and a lot of people started to fear that a zombie takeover was imminent. The images that were used in the article were doctored photographs from the movie World War Z, which is an apocalyptic movie about the undead. The story started in Liberia and appeared in 2 African news outlets, but the claims were never confirmed by the government, which definitely would have released a statement if the hoax had been real. And while a zombie apocalypse sounds terrifying, it most likely won't happen anytime in the near future. 6. Jasmine Tridevil. In September 2014, a woman from Florida was reported to have undergone plastic surgery in order to add a 3rd breast to her chest. The story made news headlines due to its ridiculousness and went on to trick hundreds of thousands of people. Jasmine Tridevil is the name of the alleged woman from the various articles that were published following the story. The outlandish claims sparked interest with the public. There were even images of the woman and her 3 breasts circulating all over the internet. However, many people took this story as fact at face value and failed to do any further research into the narrative themselves. Media outlets began to run the story about Miss Tridevil without confirming the details. And in the beginning, nobody attempted to get third-party photographs of the woman. The doctor who supposedly completed the cosmetic surgery was never interviewed, and there was no research into the background of this woman, who could have easily been using a fake name. There were a lot of online tabloids that published the story just so they could gain new readers, and most likely didn't even care if it was real or not. Miss Tridevil began to make claims online that she had booked various talk shows to speak about her surgery, even stating she would make an appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live. But the woman never ended up being interviewed on TV. Instead, she began promoting a self-produced reality show starring herself. However, that never aired either, and her credibility was soon called into question. Images of a woman named Alicia Hessler began to circulate online, and people noticed that she bore a striking resemblance to Jasmine Tridevil. The photos were taken from an online modeling page And there was a website called JasmineTridevil.com that was discovered to be owned by someone named Alicia Hessler. Apparently, there was also a Tampa-based massage therapist by the name Alicia Jasmine Hessler, who looked eerily similar to the three-breasted woman herself. Then, on March 14, 2013, Alicia Jasmine Hessler was taken into custody and charged with fraudulent use of personal information in Hillsborough County, Florida. Local Tampa station WTSP even reported that Miss Hessler had visited the Tampa International Airport and filed a stolen baggage complaint that had 3 breast prostheses listed among the lost items. After this incriminating information was released to the public, Jasmine Tridevil refused to comment on the matter, only further proving that the whole thing was a hoax to begin with. 5. Pan Am Flight 914. The mysterious story of Pan Am Flight 914 has become the subject of many conspiracy websites and UFO blogs over the decades. The plane supposedly took off in 1955 from New York and was reported to have vanished into thin air with 57 passengers on board. Then, as if nothing had happened, Flight 914 reappeared 37 years later and landed in Miami. It seems impossible, right? Well, that's because it is. The whole story was a hoax fabricated by a notorious tabloid called Weekly World News. The writers who created this work of fiction published an article 3 decades after the alleged Flight 914 had disappeared. They made it seem as though they were following up on a news story from years before. But in reality, everything they reported was a lie. The tabloid was infamous for publishing fantastically unreal stories, which is why they were eventually shut down in 2007. However, at the time this article was published, many readers believed it to be true. People began to come up with theories to explain the miraculous disappearing and reappearing act, many of which involved either some sort of time travel portal or extraterrestrial interference. The story is still believed by some conspiracy theorists to this day. And in June of 2019, a YouTube video from the channel Brightside renewed interest in this hoax when they posted a 9-minute video on the subject. For the first 7 minutes of the viral video, which amassed roughly 5 million views, it delves into the mystery surrounding Pan Am Flight 914. The video does eventually get around to the possibility that the entire story is a work of fiction, but most of the viewers didn't seem to get that far into it. 4. Cannibal Elites and Adrenochrome. In 2020, there was a live stream that went viral featuring Kirsten Weldon, a QAnon conspiracy theorist and former actress. She claimed that Hillary Clinton had passed away the year before from a rare brain disease that's associated with cannibalism. The story seems far-fetched, but many viewers believed Weldon, as she seemed to have a lot of information regarding the incident. While being interviewed on the Up Front in the Prophetic podcast, the host, Francine Fosdick, mentioned that Jean Decode Consensei, another well-known conspiracy theorist, had claimed that Hillary Clinton had been eliminated long ago. Weldon supported Consensei's notion and agreed that the former Secretary of State was dead, but offered up her own ideas about the manner of death and the timing the incident took place. Weldon explained that Clinton had passed away from a disease called Kuru and said that she was already stage 4 and couldn't be helped. However, the bizarre claim was shocking to say the least, given the fact that the last known case of the disease was among a group of cannibals from Papua New Guinea. The QAnon-spiracy that went viral also proposed that Clinton and other well-known leaders in the government participate in satanic rituals that involve literally devouring children in order to gain vitality. According to Weldon, by harvesting adrenochrome from their victims, which is a chemical compound that's produced by the oxidation of adrenaline, Hollywood elites and liberal politicians could use its benefits to extend their own lives. There are also other QAnon conspiracy theorists that claim Clinton and Huma Abedin, her chief of staff and former aide, were captured on video tearing off a victim's face, wearing it as a mask, and then drinking their blood to obtain the adrenochrome. However, no such video has ever surfaced online. Liz Crokin is an American columnist and conspiracy theorist who stands behind these outlandish claims. She's been featured in a video stating that elites love adrenochrome, which is derived from the pituitary gland of children. She even says the chemical compound is sold frequently on the black market and that it's the favorite drug of the upper class. 3. End of the world. An article was posted on CNN's iReport News Hub in 2014, claiming that a massive asteroid was on a direct collision course with Earth. Even though the story was not produced by the news channel themselves, many readers who found the article took it as fact. The person who posted the piece was only identified as Marcus575, but he insisted in his writings that NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory had detected an object the size of Manhattan that was headed right for the planet. He claimed the asteroid was 10 miles, 16 kilometers wide, and was discovered to be around 51 million miles, 82,076,544 kilometers from Earth. However, in the article's second paragraph, it said that the impact was set to take place on March 35th, 2041. Regardless of when it was slated to happen, various publications linked onto the story and caused widespread panic by claiming the world was coming to an end. The story stayed up on CNN for a whopping 22 hours before it was finally removed. The news channel quickly came out with a statement saying that NASA had confirmed via email that the story was false and that the biggest object that had been detected in space was only 1.8 miles, 3 kilometers wide, and posed no threat to the planet. While the whole thing was just a hoax created by a man most likely seeking fame from the incident, many people actually believed the world was about to be destroyed. Even though the story was refuted not even a day after it was posted, some still think that it was covered up in order to keep the population in blissful ignorance. 2. Martian Invasion. On October 30th, 1938, the CBS radio network aired a special Halloween episode of their series, The Mercury Theater on the Air, which falsely claimed that a Martian invasion was happening. Even though the program didn't have a massive audience, it still caused panic among the listeners. The broadcast started out normally with an introductory monologue, but then the host, Orson Welles, claimed that the show was being interrupted because of breaking news. He stated that there were strange explosions being documented on Mars, and that an unidentified object was discovered after falling on a New Jersey farm. The broadcast prank then escalated when Wells claimed a reporter in Grover's Mill was live on the scene at a UFO crash site. He described creatures emerging from the spaceship, and that when officials approached them with a truce flag, the aliens responded by incinerating them with an alleged heat ray. Wells then goes on to explain that an alien invasion has begun, and that the military's attempts to stop the threat have been unsuccessful. It turned out that the whole broadcast was an adaptation of the 1898 film, The War of the Worlds. But it was the first time anything like this was done on the radio. However, before the show began, there was a musical interlude explaining that it was just a work of science fiction. But a lot of the listeners apparently missed that. 1. Santiago Flight 513. On September 4th, 1954, Santiago Flight 513 supposedly took off from Aachen, West Germany, and should have landed in Porto Alegre the next day, but mysteriously it never made it to its destination. To make things even stranger, 3.5 decades later, the Porto Alegre airport allegedly noticed an unauthorized aircraft hovering in the sky on October 12, 1989. Air traffic controllers tried to contact the pilot, but were unable to reach him. After a while, the plane was reported to have stuck a perfect landing with the engines still up and running after it touched the ground. Inside the fully functioning aircraft, they supposedly found the 92 skeletons of the passengers on board. Miguel Victor Curie, the captain, was also nothing but bone, and he had his hands still tightly gripped around the controls. However, officials and eyewitnesses to the event refused to comment on the sudden reappearance of Flight 513, and nobody could confirm what had happened. Dr. Kelso Atello, a paranormal researcher, said that the only plausible explanation for this event is that the Santiago Flight had entered a time warp. But if this were true, how could the pilot land the plane if he was found as a skeleton? At the time the news story broke, Santiago Airlines had been out of business since 1956, and living executives that used to work there were unable to comment on the incident. Various government officials and agencies were said to have investigated this strange occurrence, but they refused to disclose the information they found. The government also did not comment on the claims from Dr. Atello or whether or not they thought a time warp was involved. This is because the story of Santiago Flight 513 is widely considered to be nothing but a tabloid hoax. There are no details regarding the sudden reappearance of the plane that can be confirmed, and many people believe that the story was created as a fictional story. It was first published by the Weekly World News, who was known to bend the truth in order to make a profit, and this article was released just 4 years after the tabloid published the story about Pan Am Flight 914 that disappeared and reappeared after 37 years. Have you ever fallen for a fake news story? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.